This podcast is the second part of the sustainability, social and moral aspects. We are now going to look at offshore manufacturing. A multinational company is a company that does business in more than one country. They are usually based in developing countries and have offices, branches or manufacturing plants in other countries. Such companies can be so powerful that their budget exceeds the gross domestic product of many developing countries. An example would be Microsoft and Colombia. Offshore manufacturing means that products are made in one country and usually exported to developed countries. Offshore manufacturing helps companies to draw on expertise to develop new products in computing and electronics, or to outsource their work to make goods cheaper for export. Initially, outsourcing was used to manufacture cheap clothes, trainers and toys, but recently many simple customer service operations such as call centres have been set up due to the increased speed that data can be shared. An example would be a product that is designed in the UK, such as a book, could then be sent to China via digital network to be printed at a much cheaper cost. Why do multinationals manufacture offshore? One reason is reduced costs in labour and resources. Another reason is the same quality can be achieved in no matter what country you are. Another reason is having bases in developing countries means access to expanding overseas markets. However, is it ethical that multinational countries should have bases in more than one country? One of the downsides is there is unemployment in developed countries. Another reason is that the exploitation of labour in developing countries. Workers in developing countries are denied basic wages, basic benefits, unions, and their working conditions are often somewhat lower. It also results in displacing people from traditional trades and depends on unskilled labour, resulting in poor wages. Offshore manufacturing has a number of disadvantages and advantages. Some of these advantages are the economic regeneration of local areas through increased employment, the increase in living standards, the physical regeneration of the landscape around through infrastructure, road networks, transportation, local amenities, the widening of the country's economic base, including foreign currency being brought into the country, and enables the transfer of new technology that would be impossible without the backing of multinational corporations. Now, when we look at the disadvantages, there are environmental and employment issues. Some of the environmental issues are the increased pollution and waste production of manufacturing and the destruction of local environments through the building of factories, processing plants and roads. Some of the employment issues are lower wages than those of workers in developed countries where a minimum wage operates. There are promotion restrictions as managerial roles are often taken. There are no unions to protest against equal rights issues or unfair dismissal. There's lower health and safety standards. Traditional skills can be lost, and local communities can become dependent on multinationals, and if these multinationals leave the area, then the population would have nowhere to turn. The last thing we're going to look at is cross-cultural design. Products designed for one culture may not fit another. Cultures need to be understood and tolerated if a design is to be successful. Global marketing. The target culture needs to be understood because a wrong translation of a phrase or wrong perception can damage potential growth. An example would be Bath is an Iranian washing detergent. Companies are now using local experts to understand different cultures so products can be tested and evaluated in order to succeed. Now, what happens when it goes wrong? An example is Kellogg's cornflakes in India. Kellogg's set up a branch and assumed that people in India started the same way that British and Americans do, by pouring cold milk on cereal. But in the Indian culture, they believe that this is a shock to the system and instead use warm milk. This warm milk had an effect on the product that the local people then started describing as soggy paper. This had a negative effect on the product, and therefore the product did not succeed in India as well as expected. The key is to understand that a product designed for Westerners may not be suitable for cultures around the world, and therefore market research into the culture needs to be completed before a product is marketed. That concludes the revision for the entire graphic subject. If you have any questions, come and speak to me.